The stories are easy to find these days. Trump supporters who are shocked, yes, shocked, that the president is moving forward with the agenda he promised throughout the campaign. But is this voter remorse real or just an easy layup for the press?
CBS found a remorseful Meals on Wheels recipient in North Carolina.
What would you tell him to convince him not to cut this program?
What if it was your mama?
CNN tracked down a Trump supporter who benefits from Obamacare.
You voted for Donald Trump, who promised to repeal something that you're very much benefiting from.
Then there's the singing cowboy who has now gone silent.
I don't believe that he was true in his word.
It's a popular storyline. Media reports concluding Trump is disappointing his supporters. The New York Times went to a rural Illinois town which Trump carried, talking to residents who are outraged a local businessman got the boot from immigration officials.
And begin delivering the reforms our people deserve.
Yet Trump rallies are still packed, and a recent survey found only 3% of Trump voters regret their vote. Another Michigan survey found no one with buyer's remorse.
Do you feel like you were played? Do you feel like you were hoodwinked?
I think we know how you feel about that.
I have to say this was entirely predictable. We did not see a similar type of behavior either time President Obama was elected or Clinton for that matter, even the Bushes. It was entirely predictable that the media would do this. I mean, we talked about it right after the election, Adam. I think you came up with a phrase, confirmation bias. It's almost like they're at it again.
I'll take credit for that.
I'm crediting you. That the media wants confirmation that this was a mistake.
You left out that poll from Quinnipiac that came out a couple days ago, which showed that there actually has been a significant erosion in support for Trump among a bunch of parts of his base. The polls are probably going to disagree on that, but there is some evidence that this is a legit theme. I feel like some of these stories, you can see how hard they're working to confirm the bias that they have. I would put the singing cowboy high atop that list. In fact, that made me uncomfortable because I felt like I was watching the press take advantage of sort of a broken human being. I thought
he lost his son.
To addiction and didn't think Trump would do what he's done. I thought the Times story was quite good, actually, because they went to this town that was overwhelmingly pro-Trump and yet has been upset by the seizure by ICE of this Latino pillar of the community. I thought that was a good piece. Some of them are not.
And I do think, you mentioned that this is not something we've seen in the past. There's always buyer's remorse. I remember with President Obama talking to some Republicans who had never voted for a Democrat. They did, and then going back and talking to some of these folks, and they did have remorse. Maybe it wasn't covered the way that it is now, and because of the polarization that we have in the country, you can see the press almost, well, we have to do this. There's almost this urge to do it. But it has always been there. I mean, there are always people who will vote, and then something comes down a few months later, and they start questioning that vote.
Yeah, I mean, to follow up on Adam's point, President Trump got about 45% of the popular vote. And the Quinnipiac poll, one of a number of polls that are showing roughly the same thing, shows that he has a 37% approval rating.
But that's different.
So, well, it is different
than regretting that you voted for somebody.
Yes, it is. I agree. But nevertheless, that suggests that there is some percentage of people within that gap who probably regret the vote that they had. What has struck me about this right from the start is that the president has maintained his support among Republicans by a very wide margin. But again, the Quinnipiac poll shows that his approval rating among Republicans has slipped from 90% to 80% in the last week or so. So I do think it's a real phenomenon. At the same time, I think we in the media are trying to make more of it than we really should.
I guess what I think is it's too soon. It feels very early. The man hasn't been in office 100 days, maybe 200, 300 days in. Let's take a look now. I will say this. Some of the stories are predicated on things that we know because we follow this very, very closely. And there are a lot of small legislative moves that I have described as mean, directed right at the middle class and lower income people, which are his base. And a lot of folks don't know about that yet. So when that rolls back to them, I'm not even talking about the immigration that travel.
Well, Meals on Wheels, that was an example.
Well, yeah, but that's part of a bigger thing. I'm talking about his getting rid of the mortgage credit. I'm talking about him saying, no, companies, you may not give a discount to low-income families for high-speed broadnet. Now, that sounds small, but these are the people that could best benefit for these kinds of moves. And it gets mean after you accumulate it. So I don't know if people then are going to say, wait a minute, man, you're our guy.
Yeah, but
you're
my
not
point is
supposed to be
that
doing it.
the media has dogged these stories, and that happens
But
in
I'm
every
saying to you why.
administration.
I'm saying to you, yes, but I'm saying why they're dogging right now is that they think that these people know what we know about these small things.
They
And
don't
also
care.
the political media loves to jump the gun. Remember when President Obama won and we were talking about how the Republican Party was going to be permanently obsolete? We do this.
And it's
Right.
an easy storyline, too.
That's
right?
true.
Easy
No, of
storyline.
course.
Yeah.